You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'll share a couple of comments that you have brought in respect of this very, very, very harrowing situation and traumatizing circumstances that all the victims will find themselves in, whether they were at fault or not. Something definitely has to be done. And Kingsley says that it appears to me the only issue that is criminal in the chain of actions that he perpetrated on the ladies is his recording of their intimate acts and sharing it online, of course, without their consent. That is criminal and must be dealt with as such. As to him chasing the ladies or luring them to accept him to the point of sharing intimacy with them, that is their own issue, based on their own morality and integrity. If they did so because of their economic vulnerability, that is their choice. Exposing the nudity of a partner, whether casual or married, is unlawful. Yes, according to the Cybersecurity Act, unless there is consent. Without that, what you're doing is not permitted by law. Kojo says, I don't mean to be controversial, but can we take a minute and ask whether all these women are indeed victims? I ask this because this Russian is clearly a pornographer. He plans, produces, and shoots pornographic content. He didn't just enter Ghana and try his luck with Ghanaian women. Is it not more likely that he advertised, recruited, and paid willing Ghanaian women to pretend to have chance encounters with him that result in sex? I ask this because such content does exist on the internet. Yes, Hajia mentioned that. Such content does exist on the internet. It is filmed by willing professionals who pretend to be unaware that they are being filmed, just to feed into the fantasies of voyeuristic men. So bearing in mind that none of the Ghanaian women seen in these videos has actually lodged a complaint or made a report about being filmed without their consent and the content being illegally distributed, are we not jumping the gun by simply assuming that a crime has been committed here? Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay. Manche Bruce II says that the recent video shared by a Russian individual featuring unsuspecting Ghanaian women is deeply concerning. I urge our Foreign Affairs Minister to engage with the Russian government to take decisive action against him. Of course, the state has started all these processes. Those sharing the videos are also culpable and should be pursued by the Cybersecurity Authority, correct? As Dean of Students and a gender advocate, I find the video disturbing and call for its immediate removal from all platforms. Thank you for supporting Hajia's call. We must also advise Ghanaian women, especially those married, to exercise caution when interacting with men they barely know. So this is from Professor E. Bruce Amate Jr., Dean of Students, TTU. All right. Dr. Ashigbe says that, we need to also educate the bloggers who are procuring clicks at the expense of victims of sexual exploitation. Some of us will not sit idle. We are going to report these activities to the Ghana Police Service and the Cybersecurity Authority. We need to stop being insensitive. Will they be happy pushing these women to suicide? And some of them, you ask, do they have sisters? Do they have mothers? I can't believe why you would, you are doing what? Blogging. And so you take this and you spread it again. Are you okay? This is bad. So thank you Dr. Ken Ashigbe says we should also warn them. And the Cybersecurity Authority should get hard on those bloggers as well, because if they are also sharing it, they are equally guilty. This one says that, sadly, we live in an autopiloted country where nobody cares about what somebody does. It's all about chronic gratification and self-aggrandizement, hence the incessant erosion of our core traditional values, value system. All these happenings of sexual exploitation and chronic appetite for social whatever is clear trait of an overzealous Generation Z population. Let us accept the painful reality that Ghana's security architecture is leaking with so much risk. Yakubu Mohammed Imoro Akuba Chambers in Walawale sent in that one. So I told you, whilst you may see it as a mundane issue, people are very concerned. And Raymond says that this thing is about the situation of vulnerability, and it hinges on poverty or lack of upbringing, good upbringing. My friends have told me of stories of guys attending a funeral in the village and going round and sweet-talking a few ladies, invite a few ladies to visit them at specified times in their hotels. Wait, majority will appear and give in for small change. Poverty, naivety, and morals are the issues here that we have to look at. So, also confirming that this is not actually new, but well, we have identified that this is wrong, so we need to deal with it. This one says that, good morning, please. Okay, that's Kanashigbe's message again being sent by my producers. Thank you very much. And for those that have not been able to read your messages, forgive me about that, because we need to move on, but let's take the education. This is wrong, and nobody should also be promoting it. Now, still talking about security. 8 Ghanaians are dead in Burkina Faso, 3 in critical condition. What did they go there to do? Not a Russian invited them there for any purpose. They went there to get tomatoes that we don't have enough. And because of the current situation, we're being told that Ghana may get into a tomato scarcity situation, because much of the tomato we use, we go to bring them from Burkina Faso. So women who are into this trade went to Burkina Faso, and this is what they have had to face: death by jihadists. Maybe on this note, we'll begin with Professor Kwesi Enin, who is taking government on for not getting intel in good time and preempting by issuing the necessary cautions to Ghanaians. Prof, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Right. Why are you blaming the states? Why are you blaming government for failure in this?
No, I haven't blamed the government. I've said 2 things. One, that when your citizens travel, or you know that you have your citizens traveling to dangerous areas, first you issue a travel advisory. And I asked your producer, or one of the producers from Joy FM, to check if there had ever been a travel advisory. And I think he couldn't produce it for me. So my conclusion was that was a failure of sorts in not cautioning and warning people from going to Burkina Faso. Subsequently, government issued a travel advisory, which I think was useful. But after that statement, I got all kinds of responses that, the embassy in Ouagadougou advised people not to, advised people, because I don't know the content. Then I've questioned people, was it an oral advice or it was a written advice? Because, you see, we need to learn from everything that happened. So that is my first comment. The second is that if we know that people travel to Burkina Faso to buy tomatoes, and that as the Burkina government establishes its own tomato factories and mops up its production, people have to go further and further into Burkina Faso. Then it raises several very disturbing questions. One, we know that until sometime late last year, when the government managed to get about 71.4% control over their territory, for a very long time, more than 60% of Burkina Faso, particularly the northern parts, were all under terrorist control, particularly Islamic State in the Greater Sahel and JNIM. Now, these two groups were allies and driven by the desire for territory, for resources, and for control, split up, fought amongst themselves, and sought to occupy more territory. And last night, I gave one of your producers a copy of some work I had done showing the sheer number or frequency of terrorist attacks in that part of Burkina Faso. So if having an external security agency, that is the research department, and having advised Ghanaians, if we take the argument from Ouagadougou and from those who are talking, that some advice was given, then I think something is only natural for our analysts to say, look, how do ordinary Ghanaian tomato farmers negotiate to get their way into territories that a sovereign government's armed forces find difficult to penetrate or to control? How do they negotiate? What do they use to negotiate? So as the Ghanaian state, we may learn something from the tomato traders. Either some intelligence for the Ghanaian state, but also to find out whether they are engaging in what we call attack trade. Attack trade basically means that during periods of instability or war, when you want to cross into enemy territory, because of the nature of the violence and the conflict, we may need to say, bring us some soya beans, some gari, some powdered fufu, some medications, and we use that as barter to allow access.
Prof,
now, the argument that they showed Ghana card and Ghana card gave them access is just a story from.
Let me read back part of the statements you made in the course of the week. You said that when a state fails its people at their critical point of need, words of sympathy almost don't mean anything. For our people to voluntarily travel to a war zone in search of livelihood, and this is happening. You clearly say the state has failed. That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, but don't you think there's a failure that in a fertile country like Ghana, we travel to a desert to go and buy tomatoes when the Pualugu tomato factory is there, when Akomadan is there? And I've just come from traveling along the border.
But Prof, this is a normal trip that the women have been doing in and out. How was the state supposed to think otherwise? Is there something special that has happened that would have given any indications that this was something that could have been prompted and preempted?
I think so. And let me say why. Look, terrorists are as smart and calculating as the two of us. we know that although the Accra Initiative was in existence, in the last period around 2023-24, that tensions had already begun to emerge between the Ghana government and the Burkina government, because the regime in power then had erroneously sought to sell the Burkinabes to the Americans, that they were using their mines for Russian military aid. We had to go and eat humble pie. Now, immediate Traore came here, and a special envoy was appointed. That meant that there was some rapprochement between the new government of Ghana and then the Burkinabe government. In the calculus of the terror, even if we were perceived as friends, because the two governments then between the MPP-led government and Traore were not friendly in the calculus of the terrorists, well, these two governments now become friends, and therefore we cannot trust the Ghanaians anymore. Okay, so this is not rocket science. Okay.
Okay. So let's take it. Granted that the steps and actions we're seeing are belated, do you have confidence in them to change anything?
Confidence
in the processes that have, started?
Well, I think the foreign minister is talking about deepening the relationship. About 3 weeks ago, there was a very important meeting in Accra that didn't get much publicity, in which the Ghana government led a process that says, how do we build better partnerships and collaboration amongst ourselves, sharing intelligence and all that. So some process has begun. But you see, sharing information becomes key. And the speed with which critical information is shared becomes even more important. So, the detail will come out when we are faced with a crisis. But what has happened, it's important that we learn some lessons from it. And that when there's intelligence, there are assessments, there are conclusions, that those conclusions are passed on, particularly to identify groups whose actions, innocent or otherwise, can put them in danger.
Thank you, Prof.
I think there are lessons that we can learn.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Hold on there. So, Inusa, as you can tell, Prof is not amused at all. And Dr. Bawumia also had to say that Ghanaian traders must not be left to such peril as they go about their trade. I urge government to deepen intelligence collaboration with all our neighbors to ensure Ghanaians are protected wherever they find themselves. A well-established framework for preventing and countering violent extremism and terrorism should be strengthened. Once again, another issue that we can't discuss again without looking at it from political lenses. The former Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwul, says that the government must be explaining to us what happened. He says he thinks the government has not yet come out. We want a detailed explanation either by the Foreign Minister or by the Defense Minister. That's why I kept on calling that the President should have appointed a Defense Minister, because by this time, the Minister for Defense should have been on the flight to Burkina Faso with his team.
Nitiwul said that?
Yes.
To fight the Burkinabe government or what? It's not the state of Burkina Faso that attacks the traders. These are terrorists. Burkina Faso, like Dr. Enin has said, is also trying to contain them. They don't appear when you think that they will appear. You can't predict their movement, can you? It's unfortunate that they appeared and attacked our traders. They could be any other traders. They could be Burkina Faso traders. They were not targeting Ghanaians. They wanted to send fear and show that they are in control. They are still around. So we know, and everybody knows, that the Sahel area is a security, poses a security threat to countries down the coast. We all know. In fact, as a member of parliament and a member of the EU ACP parliament, we discussed this severally. EU came out with a strategy to contain. But the place is so fragile that governments there are unstable. And so you see, you are dealing with a volatile situation that will require all the African countries, probably, to come together like a coalition of the willing to deal with distance. They have appeared in Ghana before. They've strayed into Ghana. Even if they don't come directly into Ghana, they've caused disruptions in their country, and the spillover has come to Ghana. You remember the Boale area, what happened? So you see, what has happened is very unfortunate. And I like the question you put to. This is an ancient trade route. It's an ancient trade route. All of us have used that route. Into Burkina Faso, into Paga, into Sankasi. It's an ancient trade route. And traders have used that to, at times, people used to go, when we didn't have essential commodities, we used to call them, you remember? Saturday, Sunday, we will leave our schools and then go follow that route into Burkina Faso and buy their condensed milk. Yeah. And those things. It's an old route. And traders will see that, that's all that business is about. You try to go to where prices are lower to buy the stuff so that you can transport them. And the African Union recognizes that, ECOWAS recognizes that there must be free movement of people and goods. We recognize that. But that is being challenged.
Actually, ECOWAS is backing a full probe into the killing of the Ghanaian traders.
Yes, because free. But that's been challenged by the insecurity. And we know that Burkina Faso, Traoré came to power largely because he felt that the previous administration was not doing much to contain the security threat to Burkina Faso. What are we as ECOWAS doing to assist Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali to contain the security threat? This is very, very unfortunate. It should not have happened, but it's happened. And we need to sympathize with the people who were caught by circumstances far beyond their control.
You are suggesting that Dominic Nitu may have gotten it wrong, but a former deputy, defense minister, Kofi Amankwa-Menu, also says if you have a substantive minister, it becomes easier for him to deal with the Ministry of Defense from the other front. The defense minister sits as a member of the Security Council. There are issues about the Ghana Armed Forces that a substantive minister will have to carry to the council. If you don't have that, it becomes a problem. You think they are misfiring by saying the absence of a defense minister is also not helping.
They are misfiring when you ask the question, how will a substantive defense minister have prevented the occurrence of what has happened? That's how it will reveal to you that they are misfiring. The matter never happened within our territorial area. Ghana defense or military, the jurisdiction of Ghana's military is limited to the territorial area in Ghana. What you could argue and probably give that, some level of credibility is to say, well, maybe our intelligence agencies are not talking to each other well enough. Because if they were talking to each other, the Burkinabe intelligence agencies would have informed them that they picked movement.
The suggestion is that this would have been done through the defense minister.
No. The defense ministry is not part of, even though it's part of the intelligence, but We have got a separate...
They are not talking about defense ministry, because there's a deputy who is still there. They are saying the defense minister.
Oh, but I'm not talking about... He's not the national security coordinator. Defense minister is not the national security coordinator. I'm talking about the national security architecture headed by a national security coordinator. And that is responsible for gathering of intelligence. And I'm saying that if the intelligence units of the various agencies or various countries were talking to each other, probably they would have alerted us that this area is too risky for your traders to come in the first place. So can you work to prevent your traders from using that route?
But when did that place become risky? Has it not been risky always?
No, because
for a long time.
The people, you must understand that these are terrorists. They are not stationary. If they were stationary, they would have been rooted by now.
It's symmetrical.
You know, no, they are not. They move.
Okay, so let Abid come in.
Yeah.
So, you know, how could this have been preempted from your security, you know, standpoint?
Well, thank you. First of all, let me give a background to what is going on. I have had the opportunity of perusing the Global Terrorism Index reports. Their latest was published in 2025 by the Institute for Economics and Peace. I'll read you some sections of the report. It says, terrorism in the Sahel region has increased significantly, with deaths rising nearly tenfold since 2019. In 2024, the Sahel accounted for 51% of all terrorism deaths globally, while overall conflict deaths in the region exceeded 25,000 for the first time since the inception of the index. Of these, 3,885 were attributed to terrorism. Terrorism deaths here are now 10 times higher than in 2019, and the Sahel region remains the global epicenter of terrorism, accounting for over half of all terrorism-related deaths in 2024, with the number of countries affected actually increasing. 5 of the 10 countries most impacted by terrorism in this region. Although Burkina Faso remains the most affected country, both deaths and attacks declined, falling by 21% and 57% respectively. However, the country is still responsible for a fifth of all terrorism deaths globally. As a counterterrorism specialist, Samson, I've done a lot of work in this area. I have sat on an Okada from Burkina Faso into Ghana. I have done a great deal of assessment in the area, and I have first-hand understanding of what is going on there. You read a statement from Dr. Baumia talking about deepening ties with our neighbors. It's a good call, but you remember what the former president went to say in Washington, that there were activities of Wagner and all that in Burkina Faso, and it didn't go down well with them. And it strained our ties until His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was elected. A lot of work has gone into mending those ties. That is why I was not surprised in the first place when Traore came to town. And a lot of commentary went into that. But the thing is, we cannot fight it alone. You see, because of the tightly knit nature of our society within the West African subcontinent, whatever happens in one country can easily spill over into another country. That is why sub-regional and international cooperation is extremely key. It is very regrettable that this has happened. And I must say, I have spoken with sources, different stakeholders, from national security to civil society organizations. And I do know for a fact, with documentary evidence, that a lot of work had gone into that already, because it is not the first time. And I'm going to use this opportunity to correct a lot of misconceptions out there with no facts that they attacked Ghanaians. No, they didn't attack Ghanaians. And there is sufficient evidence to prove that they didn't attack Ghanaians. And the National Security Coordinator is up to the task. And a lot of work is being done in that regard. You see, the way you manage situations when things happen is extremely critical. So first and foremost, when the incident happened, the Ghana and Burkinabe authorities sprung to action. There was a visit to the Ghana consulate in Burkina Faso by the Deputy Burkina Faso Foreign Affairs Minister and the National Security Coordinator. Quickly, in partnership with the Ghana authorities, a befitting burial was organized in a marked grave for those who were killed. Those who were hurt were quickly evacuated to 37 Military Hospital. And those who survived, when they entered Ghana, were given both chaplain and psychological support. Logistic support was also given, and various stakeholders have in the past been engaged, including Tomato Sellers Association, the transport associations, on matters concerning their safety when they get out of jurisdiction, because like I indicated, it is not the first time. For example, in 2019, 2 Ghanaian drivers were killed in a terrorist attack close to the Burkina Faso-Mali border. The acting chairman of the Joint Association of Port Transport Union, one Alhaji Shamsu Baba Yaro, disclosed this to Ghana's media. The 2 Ghanaians were even named, one Mohammed Momin and Suleiman Garba. Also, 2 Ghanaians were killed in Mali some time ago near a town called Kalana, close to the border with Guinea. In 2023, for the first time, Samson, Jenin issued a threat through its propaganda media wing to Ghana over the repatriation of some Fulanis from Ghana. So this is not new. And I can say confidently with documentary proof that the national security and other stakeholders have been engaged repeatedly. There are letters to that effect. But sometimes these things happen. Unfortunately,
what do you mean by have been engaged repeatedly? What does that mean?
They have been engaged on certain protocols. You see, it is not everything you put out there. Sometimes you would have to target. You see, when you put it all out there, you might teach or show the terrorists how to change their
So when you say they have been engaged, does that mean that that gave us the opportunity to preempt this?
Absolutely.
So this could have been preempted?
Like I indicated, okay, a lot was preempted in the past. It is very regrettable that this wasn't preempted. Yeah. Even though a lot of work, advisories were issued in the past, okay? And that area is quite...
So that what? You sit in your country and then you preempt, you know, a security situation in another country. Is that it?
No. If there is a deep sense of collaboration between Ghana and Burkina Faso, we are able to preempt some of these things from happening in the first place, okay? In some instances...
What will the preemption, what form will it take? And in the past, when it happened, what form did it take?
Well, it can be based on intelligence reports. That points to the fact that terrorists intend attacking a certain facility and so take immediate steps.
Within a certain time?
Within a certain time, okay? And this doesn't only even happen between countries, amongst countries within the sub-region, even international partners who have ears on the ground.
So if the security intelligence get to know that, what do they do?
Immediately, they action. They engage relevant stakeholders.
So that they would have gone to these traders and say, don't go to Burkina.
Don't go at this time.
All right.
Or use that route, okay? Or take certain measures that I might not be able to say on TV. Okay. Ensure this doesn't happen.
Or travel
and you know, at all. Samson, the thing is, because I come from a civil society background, I have a lot of information from Burkina Faso. As a matter of fact, I have persons who are on the list of the media propaganda distribution list of these terrorist groups, including JoyNews. And so based on open source information, this attack was coordinated, and it wasn't only targeted at the Ghanaians. Different sites were attacked on that day. Some attacked the arterial routes, just like it is happening in Mali. In some cases, the terrorists have a tight noose around the capital to ensure that supplies don't get in, they don't go out, because they know it is a function of the state. It makes the state effective, okay? So they attack the arterial routes. Some attacked telecommunication networks, whilst another group attacked a market where the Ghanaians were. So it was not only Ghanaians who were killed in that attack. Many others, including a military barracks, was attacked that day. Okay, so civilians were killed, soldiers were killed, and after that, JoyNews issued a video praising their soldiers for that attack and even indicating the number of persons they had killed. In some cases, they go to communities and attack civilians because, one, they want to send a clear message that you dare not cooperate with government. They want to instill fear.
Do you see anything concrete happening on the back of this that will stop any future occurrence?
Absolutely. The Ghana authorities are in constant touch with the Burkinabes. In fact, on Thursday, our Foreign Affairs Minister, Honorable Sam Okudzeto-Ablakwa, arrived in Ouagadougou, and he was received by the Burkinabe Foreign Affairs Minister. A lot of work is going into this. Investigation has started, but let's be mindful of the fact that this is jurisdictional in nature. Titao is over 300 kilometers from Paga. You don't just, so when I hear people talking about some of these issues, I cringe, because you don't just dispatch investigators to Burkina Faso. No, it has to be done in line with certain practices, okay? Because we are talking about Ghanaians going into Burkina Faso. And we are, I must say, without mincing words, that the government is getting almost a perfect cooperation from the Burkinabe counterparts, and progress is being made. I cannot say all on TV, but surely a lot of lessons have been learned, and going forward, certain practices would have to change to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
All right. Zabuama, from where you sit, I saw you nodding when I read Dominic Mitiwu's statement and that of your other colleague, former Deputy Defense Minister. From where you sit, it does look like the absence of a substantive defense minister is to blame for everything going on.
Samson, not necessarily, but why don't we have a substantive defense minister since the demise of our...
What will the substantive do that the ministry cannot do presently?
Why did we create that ministry? Why do we appoint ministers in those stead? You have a minister for finance, whom you have doubled as the minister for defense. Already at the Ministry of Finance, things are not working. He's facing challenges.
Yeah, Cocoa people.
We in Parliament, we've not even seen the Minister for Finance, who is also a member of Parliament, for over a month. The minister is overly engaged. And you have this at hand. Both Minister for Environment and Defense are dead. How many months down the line? And up till today, you've not appointed minister. Why do we have the Ministry for Defense?
But there's a
you know that the work of a minister is different from a deputy.
There's a deputy, there's also the Interior Minister, there's a Foreign Affairs Minister.
This is where the problem is. We are having structural security breakdown. Because you see, when you have a minister for interior, whom you have also doubled as minister in charge of national security, already at the interior ministry, domestically, we are having challenges. Now you also have a minister for finance who is doubling for minister for defense. And all of these, in terms of the intelligence gathering, the movement, the assignment of military personnel, you don't have the Ministry of Interior providing security at our borders. That is the function of the Defense Ministry. And so this whole thing is a problem, not only putting the blame or the challenge at the appointment of a minister, but it is imperative that we get a minister for defense. Else, why do you have the ministry? But importantly, from the submission of my colleague here, there are lots of inconsistencies. The first point is that they did not attack Ghanaians.
Only Ghanaians.
Only Ghanaians. No, he said that attack, there is a narrative to suggest that the terrorists targeted Ghanaians. No. And he's trying to establish that they did not.
Is that not a fact?
The information that we have is that before they were attacked, they took the identification. They knew they were Ghanaians before they attacked them.
They were on a rampage.
No. They knew their identity as Ghanaians. So if they had no intention of killing the Ghanaians, they would have let them go. So you cannot single out the fact that...
He's not saying that they didn't intend to kill Ghanaians. What I heard him say, and you have repeated, is that they didn't target Ghanaians.
But,
so there were other casualties.
So when they identified that they were Ghanaians, if the jihadists don't have a reason because of whatever information is available to them, the fact that Ghana's position today, encouraging the relationship or supporting the work of the Burkinabe government, and so if jihadists have issues with the government, they would reasonably see Ghanaians as a means of attack.
So that's your point.
Exactly so.
That's President Mahama or Ghana's relationship with Tuareg is to blame.
They are all mixed and they are all part. These are all matters that if you are talking about your intelligence and security briefing, and the relationship, our foreign relationship, and our engagement with our partners in those countries, we should also be careful about the way we respond to these things.
What happened to good neighborliness? What should the government of Ghana be doing? Say that because we are undemocratic, we don't want to have anything to do with you. Is that it?
No.
Okay.
We've had several instances where there have been military juntas across West Africa. There's been position of ECOWAS in these matters. Governments of Ghana have always called for these countries to come back to multi-party democracy. But then, if you put a posture whereby you go ahead and endorse to the extent that in celebrating your independence, you invite that government into your territory, into your celebration with arms on him, then what kind of security signal are you giving to the next? And secondly, he talked about intelligence and preempting these matters. How come we did not get this intelligence? What has been the tribal advisory that we've been talking about? If your intelligence is apt and right, you would have sent signals to Ghanaians that because of this situation, our review have indicated that there are heightened security concerns. And so travelers be guided. Why are we now issuing travel advisory today and not then? If our security was on point.
It was. Advisories were issued.
When?
In fact,
advisories
were targeted advisories were issued.
To who?
To stakeholders, like I indicated, the tomato sellers, the transport unions.
When?
Even as early as this year, travel advisories were issued. And you know, it wasn't constricted to just Burkina Faso.
No.
Even traders going to Togo, Mali, and other places were all engaged.
Burkina Faso. We know what is happening in Togo, and the travel advisories, when the problem started in Togo, we knew how governments responded by putting up those advisories. I have checked. questioning indicated saying that he asked your team to check if there had been previous issuance of travel advisories to our people, and there was none. So if you tell them travel advisories are not hidden, they are public documents.
It depends.
No.
It depends.
If you are
we could have targeted advisories.
But
we have
tomato farmers, to tomato farmers,
sellers,
traders, actually,
traders, to tomato traders, this wouldn't be a secret advisory to them. It would have been a public information to them. So where we are coming from is that there has been a government failure in this. You see, it is not for political gains. It is for us to check because there are Ghanaians who are dead.
So what does the minority want to be done?
We have said that there's much more to what we are
First appointed defense minister, then what?
That is something I'm surprised the president, how many months down the line, has not. And I know, as we speak now, he is taking counsel in that regard.
He had promised that after the Christmas festivities, New Year festivities.
He did.
But he would do that.
And this is where we are
in
today.
February.
Yes. You see, so there is more to the information we are receiving from government.
Okay.
So the call is for government. Parliament have asked the minister to come and give a briefing to us.
Right.
We've also asked for a bipartisan committee to look into it more so that we can get the sides of all stakeholders. Because we need to also protect and preempt future occurrences. If my brother's source tells him that government is doing well, we need to test it. Because to you, government might be doing their best. But maybe when we all have the opportunity, if I say we, I mean those who matter in terms of the security conversation, there might be other concerns or advice that could also come on board to make it better. All I want to see is that this situation doesn't happen again. All we want to see is that government should react faster, should respond quickly to these matters. And our posturing as well in terms of our other countries like Burkina and the rest, we should also be mindful and guided.
Right.
So that we don't cause...
so as we understand it, for 2024, vegetable products, in going and bringing them, we did as much as $98 million. Electrical equipment, I'm talking about from Burkina Faso, 11.2 million. Chemical products, 1 million. Iron and steel, 26,000 US dollars. Vehicle parts, 151,000 US dollars.
Okay, so the cost of production in Ghana sometimes and most of the times is very high. And then we usually also do a lot of wastages. We produce tomatoes in Ghana. And another one, we are not also used in patronizing Ghana goods because Ghana have tomatoes. But if you go to the market, most people will prefer Burkina Faso tomatoes. Not just tomatoes. We are bringing in garden eggs from Burkina Faso. We are bringing in beans and others. If you go to the market, even the market women will tell you Burkina Faso beans, yeah, they sing Ghana beans. They will tell you they will tell you this is tastier than this. So it's a very big worry as a country when we import more than we produce. We also intend to do a lot of wastages when the seasons come in. We don't have this spirit of preserving our products. Our yams come in season and they go to waste. Our plantains come in season and they go to waste. Our cucumbers, we have everything, virtually everything. God has blessed Mother Ghana so much that we have everything. But we frequently depend on others and making others richer than our own selves. It is a very big worry that our women are also not safe, even internally. So what they sought to do is, even those who are bringing the tubers of yam, take the buses and label their yams and give it to the truck drivers because they are not safe. So even internally, we are failing Ghanaian women. So it is a wake-up call to all of us that the government should protect Ghanaian women and children, because every market woman or businesswoman wakes up at dawn. Some even stay days on buses just to be able to bring food to our...
What are your solutions? What are you thinking about? What can the government do about that? That they are traveling to bring goods
Increasing of security. They should also help us tighten securities at certain vantage points. They should provide...
The cases you are talking about, they didn't happen in your jurisdiction.
I'm now focusing internally, because even internally, women are still suffering at our borders. Some are being raped. Some are being, their monies are being taken away from them. Some lost their kids and all that. So if we are able to provide security internally for some of these women, provide factories. Our tomato factory is still in cans, is not being in use. We should set up small factories for these women. Some of our products can be preserved and made in good use when we are out of stock or when we are out of season. So I think the government has to help the women of Ghana.
What do you say about this comment from Frank Anderson Jr.? He says, across the world, at least in civilized democracies, when terrorist attacks claim the lives of citizens, political divisions are set aside and there is unified, unequivocal condemnation from all sides. It is deeply irresponsible to exploit acts of terror that have taken innocent lives for political gain. At moments like these, basic decency and ethical standards should rise above partisan interests.
Perfectly said. And this is a very big worry when it comes to certain issues in Ghana here. This is not to win political points.
A while ago, you were talking about the failures, what you see as failures on the part of the government in not providing sufficient security.
If government is general, it's general. I'm not politicizing it. It's general. But government can do more for us as citizens. We should put aside NDC, MPP, United Party. It is us as a whole. We expect the government to do more. But we are not pinpointing at a personality.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a very big worry. And internationally, there are so many things that are going on to support even women. So there is much to be done. I'm not pinpointing to one person, but as a whole, as a country, we can do more to protect our women.
A lot of these traders from Ghana and even logistics companies are aware of the situation in Burkina Faso. I know drivers from logistics firms here in Takoradi who haul to and from Burkina Faso, and they return with stories of how Burkinabe soldiers have to offer them protection through some spots, etc. If Adib is saying there have been targeted advisory notices, I will agree with him.
Yeah. In fact, that's why I'm surprised that we are trying to read into what has happened. Now, if Burkina Faso security themselves pick information that the bandits or terrorists are going to be operating within a certain specific area within their territory, they send soldiers to protect people. This was totally an exercise that caught everybody by surprise. And that's how terrorists operate. They catch you by surprise. But within the larger conversation, actually, I like what Ajia has said. Growing up, I grew up knowing that if you wanted tomatoes in Ghana, go to Afrenchu. You know Afrenchu? What has happened? Then we did a dam Navrongo. If you wanted tomatoes, go there. So what has happened? Yeah, them. So it's total failure. Maybe Feed Ghana, if they are listening to us. Again, market women go to Burkina Faso because of price differentials. So if we're able to use a Frencho revamp our tomato production via revamp, they will not go to Burkina. In fact,
just like the cocoa now,
yes.
The people in Côte d'Ivoire, they are getting about almost 1,000 cedis extra when you compare the price that we are giving to our cocoa farmers.
Yes.
Even though, as we understand, they are also thinking of cutting the price like Ghana has done.
So the people will move. But if we take our destiny into our own hands and produce, like Dan Lati said, produce what we eat and eat what we produce, put our arable lands under cultivation, we will minimize and mitigate some of this risk. Because the borders are porous. In mentioning the imports from Burkina Faso, you didn't mention cattle. I farm around Yarba. Okay? I can tell you, during the harvesting season of the rice, you find Burkinabés just trooping into Ghana with their herds of cattle. They don't go through borders. So that itself poses some security threat to our country. But well,
so Prof. Senin, Prof. Senin, the call from people like Anderson who have sent in messages about a unified, front rather than a polarized front and an attempt by the opposition to take advantage of this to make the government look bad, and also Emmanuel, who sends the message about the fact that even those dealing with haulage, haulage logistic companies sometimes get soldiers or security personnel from Burkina side to offer them protection. What do you have to say about these?
Well, very quickly, Samson, I think the call for a unified response is very timely. All this talk about making political, gains, the fact that the interior minister's remit ends at Paga. Every single Ghanaian minister's power ends at Paga. The fact that there is no defense minister doesn't mean that it contributed to what happened. And that if we had a defense minister, he could just get on a plane, go to Ouagadougou, and then do what? The President of the Republic of Ghana can clothe any minister with the appropriate powers to represent him in a foreign country to have a conversation. So I think we should move beyond this emotional blackmail and disingenuous interpretation of what has happened.
I'm talking about Emmanuel also, who is suggesting that some Ghanaians who are doing this business of haulage actually get Burkinabe security to give them protection. And he's also suggesting that the targeted security advisory that, Adib speaks about may be true. What do you know?
Look, in a sovereign state, the government tries as much as possible to demonstrate power, effectiveness, reach. So in Burkina Faso, some of my former colleagues go to Burkina Faso, sometimes by road. And occasionally they've heard that, look, there's an attack here, so stop. So providing escort is not a big deal. There's nothing special about that. We've seen Burkinabe military equipment going up north, escorted by Ghanaian security. Okay, so if the Burkinabes do this, it's a natural reflection of government's determination to exhibit some effectiveness, reach of power, because we know that about 30 to 40% of the country is under terrorist control.
How much of President Mohammed's, accommodation of Traoré, even, appointing an ambassador for the Sahel, can be said to contribute to the attack?
Well, it can possibly I think it's played a role. And therein lies the poverty of the analysis from the Ghana side as to how a particular, policy can have unintended impacts. I know when I say this, they'll say, those assessments have been made, but we never see them. Okay, immediately Traore came here and an envoy was appointed. Extremely useful steps when Gbeblo Latte was appointed as the envoy to the AES, because there was no trust. But building trust or re-establishing trust also meant that others would interpret it in a different way. And I think the failure to do this analysis and provide possible responses and options for government and the people of Ghana to use, therein lies where I think the intelligence have failed us.
Okay, interesting comments there. I need to take a break here. We return to our next issue to look at, but okay, so the two of you, everybody is putting their hand up. 30 seconds each.
Okay, so I can state emphatically that if we had a defense minister, I don't think it could have averted this. It is regrettable. It is very unfortunate. But you see, what is the role of a defense minister? Policy. Actioning government's policies so far as the defense architecture is concerned. But he doesn't do it alone. He has a deputy. There are military chiefs. His role might not entirely be direct operational. So in my opinion, as a security practitioner, I do know that there is no correlation whatsoever between not having a defense minister and what had happened in the police. And a quick one, there are some escorts, like Prof has indicated, okay? But when they get to the border, then the Burkinabes take over. Burkina Faso is not a failed state, okay? We can only advise, we can only share intelligence, but we cannot teach them how to run their country, okay? So sometimes some of these lapses happen. And to finalize things, sub-regional unity is extremely critical in fostering peace and security. We cannot jettison Burkina Faso.
Okay, Boama.
So I think the call based on the question on the opposition or the minority's view of the appointment of a defense minister is viewed not in respect to the incident that happened in Burkina Faso, but as a matter of a national concern. So that is the angle where we have always, because we started raising this before the incident happened in Burkina.
So the former defense minister, the former deputy defense minister, they should raise it but not link it to this.
No, so it was only brought in connection with this, only to the extent that if you have your defense ministry fully equipped, including the substantive minister, it could help. But importantly, I don't want us to have this conversation suggesting that there's been a partisan approach to this, trying to take political capital. No, we're talking about lives of innocent Ghanaians. And we're taking government on to ensure that government takes steps to forestall future occurrences. And so the minority or the MPP have not postured to an extent that you want to blame government for the cause of it. But we are looking at the lapses, the weaknesses that we foresee. And so let's look at it from that as well. We are all adding them to the point that it is about lives of Ghanaians. Anything that the state has to do to protect Ghanaians here and outside, we need to take that into consideration.
Thank you very much. And if you're just joining us, you've been listening, watching Professor Kwesi Ening, security analyst, Adib Sani, security analyst, got me some nice cappuccino at the airport some time ago. Hajia Gloria Amenu is National Women's Organizer, United Party. Inusa Fuseni is lawyer MP, former MP Tamale Central and former Minister of the Republic. Isaac Buamanyako is lawyer, MP Afia, and member of the Finance, Environment, Science, Technology and House Committees of Parliament. This is Newsfile. We will be right back.